Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Curt 7-pole trailer wiring harness on a 2022 Hyundai Palisade. Now, having a 7-pole is going to give you your lighting functions when pulling a trailer, and also the potential ability to be able to have a brake controller. Now, in order to have that brake controller, you are going to have to pick up a few more things to make that work, but a 7-pole is required in order for that to be a possibility. Now, this is for a factory tow package, which makes it simple to just plug and play, and overall the installation is very easy. Now, we've gone ahead and mounted up to the factory mounting point that was on the factory hitch that had a factory 4-pole, but we've swapped it out and we had to pick up a bracket in order to get this to mount up. But other than that, once you plug that in, put a fuse in and zip tie up your wires, you're ready to start using your 7-pole, and that's going to give you your running lights, brake lights, and turn signals. This is also going to give you 12-volt power, so if you have an electric jack or any accessories on your trailer, that's going to give you that power when plugged in. Now, if you are looking to do a brake controller, I recommend either the RedArc Tow Pro Elite, or you also have the Curt Spectrum if you want to stay within that Curt brand to keep it all cohesive, but those are both going to be really good options for a brake controller. Installation is going to be very simple. The fact that you have a tow package already does make this plug and play, so there's no running of wires up to a 12-volt source. You really can just take off a cap, plug it in, get this mounted up, and you're ready to go. So let's take a look at that installation now. Now, the vehicle that we have today has already the 4-pole on here, and if you're upgrading to a 7 from a 4, or if you don't have anything already, no problem. It's all going to work the same. As long as you have that factory tow package, it's going to plug into the same port, so the installation is going to be roughly about the same. So we'll go ahead and start by getting to our plug, and that's going to be located on our driver's side. There's going to be a panel right here, and we're going to be taking that down. And there's going to be 3 plastic push pins that we're going to want to remove, and those are pretty easy. There's a little slot that you can put a trim panel tool in. These are really handy for these. If not, a flathead screwdriver is going to work just as well. So just going to pry that button down, and then you can kind of get behind the whole thing and it should pop out. Now, just make sure you're holding on to these as you're doing your installation. That way, when we reinstall the panel, you'll have all your hardware. Now, in these little grooves here, if you look up, there's going to be 2 plastic nuts that go onto studs, and they're going to be a 14mm to get those loose. Sometimes you can get them by hand, but this one's going to be tight with the hitch in the way, so I'm just going to use an extension of my socket, and we'll get this taken off. Now, sometimes the plastic nuts are going to want to kind of stay on there, so sometimes giving it a little downward pressure is going to help draw that away from the stud. And with a little pressure here, that should just pop off. So we'll go ahead and set this aside. And with our panel out of the way, we're going to be looking for this plug that's going to live right here. And as you can tell, we already have one plugged in. Again, that's for our 4-pole. So since we're moving to our 7, we'll just go ahead and get this taken off by pushing the tab here on the clip and then just separating here. Now, ours is zip tied up, so I'm going to go ahead and cut these zip ties to get our wiring out. Now, before I put my new harness on, I'm going to get this out of the way to give us more space. And if you didn't already have a 4-pole plug in there, there's going to be a little dummy plug just to kind of keep this connector nice and clean. So you'll be able to pop that off again just using the same method by pushing that tab down and pulling that cap off. Now, in order to completely remove our factory 4-pole, we're going to need to take it off of the bracket here. So you're going to have 2 3/8 nuts here, so we'll just go ahead and get these taken off. So now we can go ahead and get our 4-pole out of the way. Now we can go ahead with our 7-pole and get that plugged in. Just make sure that clip is snapped over there. You can give it a quick tug just to make sure that it is actually attached there. Now, what we're going to want to do before doing any mounting up, we're going to want to run our 7-pole to where we want to mount it, and that way we can figure out how much slack we have and then get the rest mounted up. So I'm just going to kind of route this over where we have our hitch, and that's going to kind of give it a nice solid mount. Now, depending on the bracket that you're going to be using to mount this up, it may live down here, so it might be better to run this down. It kind of depends on how you're mounting your bracket. But you can see the plug here, it can have wiring, it will have wiring coming out of it, so mounting it up top can be done, but it might get a little bit tight. So depending on how you want to mount it is going to determine how you're going to route this wire. We've gone ahead and removed our factory 4-pole, and we're going to go ahead and use that bracket. We're going to be using the Hopkins universal mounting bracket for 7-way trailer connections, and this is going to allow us to bolt up our plug, and it's going to have mounting holes. Now, you are going to need to source your own hardware to get this mounted up, but it's going to give us a nice secure connection and allow our plug to stay in place. Now, if you don't have the factory hitch with this mounting bracket, you can actually pick up an extended bracket, which is going to strap around here using a hose clamp style that's going to clamp around there and tighten up and hold it in place. And then from that bracket, you can bolt on your 7-way mount. So that's going to allow you to still have a nice secure mount and get your plug in place. So now we can take this end of our plug and just feed that through. And what I'm going to do here is just put a little dielectric grease on this portion of the plug, just for a little added protection for our electrical connection here. And then we can take this portion of our plug, and you'll see there's this tab here that's going to go right where this little section is, so you really can't mess it up too bad. Push this together, make sure that it snaps in. Sometimes it takes a little bit of pressure, but we should get this to pop in, and then you shouldn't be able to separate it. So you can see I gave a quick tug and it kind of wanted to pull back, but this is locked in place right now. So once we have that snapped in, this is going to mount up to our bracket. Now, our bracket doesn't come with the hardware, so you are going to have to source your own. There's other kits available. The tow-ready bracket does come with the hardware to be able to mount this up, so if that's a make or break for you when choosing a bracket, that maybe might sway you towards the tow-ready versus the Curt. Now, we've gone ahead and added our own hardware here, so we'll just get this tightened down. Now we can see it's nice and mounted solid, so when we go to put our plug in, this isn't going to be moving around on us. Now that we have our plug mounted up, we can go ahead and get our fuse and our fuse holder here. And you're just going to align those pins, push in, and then we can cap this up. So now all that we need to do is get the rest of this wire up and tucked away nice and safe. And part of that's going to be mounting our module here. Now there's a few different ways you can do this. There is a double-sided tape included in the kit, and you can stick it to a flat surface, assuming that panel goes back in place. So right here would probably be okay, but also I kind of worry that sometimes that adhesion over time, just from road grime and moisture, can kind of break down. So this hole here, you can run a self-tapper in to any of this and it's going to hold it in place, or you can even use a zip tie. So I'm going to go ahead, run a self-tapper to mount this up, and then I'll get the rest of our wires zip tied up. And along here, I'm just going to use the hitch to create a nice mounting surface for the extra wire loom. So I'll get that all cleaned up and show you how I did it. Now we've gone ahead and used the zip ties that were included in the kit. Again, just following the hitch here to give it a nice clean look. And then as I wrapped it over here, that took care of most of the slack that we had. And then I just used a self-tapping screw, also included in the kit, to mount this up. And again, you can use a bunch of different methods. You can zip tie it to factory wire loom. The main thing is you don't want this rattling around. And also this portion here where the wires are coming out of, ideally you want that facing down. That way water doesn't pool and start to break that down over time. Now we do have that cover to protect it, but again, just a good rule of thumb to keep this to where it can actually drain out. Now all that's left to do is put our panel back in and then test it out. Now these plastic nuts, they will just kind of press onto those studs, so if you align those and push up, it should hold it in place, and it's going to make it a lot easier to get your plastic push pins in. So we'll just slide this up. You can see there it kind of zipped onto that stud. And we'll do the same here, just align it. Now we'll just get our push pin fasteners back in. Just align the hole and then press the button, and that should snap it in place. Now, in order to test our wiring to make sure it's working, I'm using a 7-pole tester here. You can also hook it up to your trailer and use the lights on that. So we'll run through the light functions. Having a tester is really nice because it keeps the wiring specific to the vehicle. If you have any faulty wiring on your trailer, it may give you a false negative. So as I plug this in, I see the light already kicking on, which means that we do at least have power. So that's a good sign. We'll just run through the rest of the lights, make sure they're working. So starting off, I'll turn on my running lights. Next, I'll do my left turn signal, my right turn signal, and then finally the brakes. Now with everything working properly, we're ready to hook up to our trailer and hit the road.